Hello and welcome everyone. Today we're going to be answering a comment from someone in the community, and her name is Nilda Rodriguez, and she writes, "God bless you. I love the way you explain everything. Hope you can also tell me how to emboss after cutting. I have trouble reversing the die to emboss on top of it. Thank you. Keep up the good work. Loved your cards and learned something new with you." I want to answer that question. It can be difficult reversing the die to emboss it. I know this. I'm sure you guys have struggled. So let's go ahead and see if we can make this a little bit easier. If you have any tips and tricks that can help Nilda, put them in the comments below. And if you have any questions that you want answered, put those in the comment section below. I'm also just gonna really quick put a picture of the glue that I use. I often get this question about the glue that I use. My preferred glue is going to be the Art Glitter Glue here. I got this off of Amazon. It has a little pen that sticks inside of this nozzle part. This comes off, you put that on, but sometimes when this gets clogged because I haven't used it, or it's just clogged and I need to run it under some hot water because it is metal, then I will use the Scotch Tacky Glue, and it's a really quick drying glue, and it does not have a precision tip, so that's why I don't necessarily like using it. But when this one is clogged, this one is my other go-to, and I keep these both on my desk. So these are the two glues that I use. This one's my favorite. This one's my backup. All right, let's go ahead and emboss our die cuts. First, let's start with our plate stack. We're gonna put down our A plate, then the metal shim, the magnetic mat on top of that to add pressure. We're gonna add our cutting die face up and the paper face down. And then we're gonna put our A plate on to complete the sandwich and run it through the die cutting machine. In this example, I am showing you how to cut into the plastic A plate, and then I'm gonna do another example where I'm showing you how to cut down into the magnetic mat. The die that I'm using for this example is the die that came with the Empress machine. So if you have an Empress, you also should have this die. What you're gonna wanna do is remove all of the little paper bits and any paper that has fallen away from the die. And then pull the die away from the magnetic mat and take the magnetic mat away from the stack, leaving the metal shim. Put the die on top of the metal shim. Make sure that the paper is in alignment with the die also still. If you want to, you can add a piece of tape, but make sure there's no little pieces of paper all over it. Put the C embossing mat on the top of the die and the paper, and then put your A plate back on, running that sandwich through the Empress machine. Sometimes putting a little bit of tape on the die and the paper makes sure that when it goes through the machine that it doesn't move. Now this little embossing mat does kind of squish out of the plates, and that's okay. And that's why sometimes having that tape on there will be helpful, because that mat moves and sometimes it can move your paper or your die. So remove your A plate, then remove the embossing mat, and it will possibly have some die cut pieces on it. Remove the paper, and then you should have a perfectly embossed piece of paper from your die if you are successful. Clean out your die and you can create your project. Now, when I first learned about cutting into the magnetic mat, I became a big fan of this method because now you can die cut and emboss in one pass. So you put your magnetic mat over the top of your metal shim. Then you put your paper down on the magnetic mat, and then your die face down into the magnetic mat. Then you put your A plate over the top, and you're going to run this sandwich through your Empress machine. Now, I absolutely love this method. A magnetic mat only costs $10 on Anna Griffin's website, and so the cost of replacing it is really low. Now that our stack has come out of the Empress, we're going to also once again take the die away from the magnetic mat, remove the paper from the die, and as you'll see here, it is perfectly embossed with just one pass through the machine. So if you've been having a problem struggling with embossing your die cuts in the Empress, I would say try cutting into your magnetic mat. It will solve every problem you've ever had. If you've been following my channel, you know I don't like to let the pieces go to waste. So I'm gonna die cut some more parts of the die set that came with the Anna Griffin Empress, and we're gonna make a card. This is our completed card using the die set that came with the Anna Griffin Empress. Hopefully today you got your questions answered about die cutting and embossing. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video with a crafty friend. Have a great day.